UFC Jacksonville is officially a wrap, and what a fight card it was, capped up by Glover Teixeira finishing a very tough and gritty Anthony Smith in the main event. Hello there, everybody. I am Mike Heck alongside the whole crew here. We have José Youngs live from Jacksonville, Mr. Alexander K. Lee, and E. Casey Leydon. This is the official UFC Jacksonville live virtual post show right here on MMAfighting.com. We're going to get into the fights, all the action in a moment, but we want you guys and gals who are watching right now to get involved with the festivities here. So questions, comments, reactions, fantasy matchmaking ideas coming out of tonight's event. Feel free to leave them in the comments. We'll try to get to as many as we can while we are live. But Jose, I want to start with you. Let's get right into this thing. We'll get into the main event in a moment, but what would be your overall letter grade for the UFC's second event over a 5-day span?
Ooh, second letter grade, I'll say like B-, C+. It didn't have it didn't have the epic feeling of the history making of UFC 249. Of course, anytime there are a bunch of heavyweight fights that go to a decision, people seem to roll their eyes. I didn't mind out of those fights, specifically the Ben Rothwell fight. I really enjoyed. All in all, it was a good fight night, but it wasn't 249. It wasn't, as Dana White called it, a home run. It was a really good follow-up show to the history-making 249. So I'll say B-, C+. Not phenomenal, but nonetheless, fights happened, and I know people are excited.
Alex, we'll go to you. I mean, Jose said it wasn't a home run per day, like Dana White said after 249, but I would say it was a pretty solid ground rule double, all things considered. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I might grade it a little bit harsher than both of you. I think the B- is fairly accurate, but I think actually the proximity to 249 hurt it, because I think because they were so close together and 249 was so eventful, the fact that this card was, again, solid, but nothing. I don't know if anything's really going to stand out from this card. Maybe we'll have to, when we review it, something will jump out at me. But I think it needed that week gap, that normal gap you have between events to kind of feel special on its own. As it is, I don't know, I was telling you guys earlier, I was already feeling a little bit worn down by how many fights there have been in the last 4 days, but a good effort from everyone on the card for sure.
Casey, what was, just off the top of your head, what's the biggest thing that stuck out overall with tonight's card compared to UFC 249?
It felt like a fight night. I guess it just felt like one of those fight nights that, I'm not doing anything this Saturday. I'm just going to watch this rando fight night, which in a sense, this is what it always was. It was just a fight night that was going to be in Nebraska, I feel. And it's something, it was one of those things like, if you don't have any plans, you'll stay home and watch. And but I think the fact that this is a Wednesday night, when there really are no weekends anymore right now, or at least for a lot of the world, it feels that way. So it felt like a fight night. I'd even actually, to be honest, I'd even notice there was no crowd.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's talk about how this night ended. Jose, we'll start with you. Glover Teixeira, incredible performance against Anthony Smith. Smith started out well. Momentum of the fight shifted for sure in a big way. Glover had a pair of 10-8 rounds in a row before the fight was mercifully stopped in the 5th round. Before we get into the other stuff surrounding the fight, and I think you all know where I'm going with this, let us give credit and props to the 40-year-old Glover Teixeira, because that showing was outstanding. Was it not, Jose?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was the exact performance Glover needed. I mean, we did the preview show, and even the A side, we talk about Glover has had a really weird career where he's strung together low-key like a pretty impressive win streak, and no one was really talking about it given the state of the light heavyweight division. And even looking back on who he lost to, he lost to Corey Anderson, which is no slouch whatsoever, but it just feels like you would expect Glover to win a fight like that. Like a Glover that showed up tonight would beat Corey Anderson. I'm not saying he every time, but he would obviously put on a better performance than what he displayed in fights that he's lost. So up and down career in terms since the title fight, but this was a pretty spectacular performance. The lack of fans really made this fight feel intimate, especially because so much of the fight was not at range. It was in close proximity, both on the feet and on the canvas. So, but yeah, stellar performance from Glover Teixeira in a fight he really desperately needed to put on the performance of a career that he pulled off.
Alex, I will admit, and I apologize for this, I did not read your predictions column today. I really wish I did. I know with watching the fight play out, actually, my little brother texted me and he said, Glover's my boy right now, so I assume that he made money off of Glover. But I didn't expect, I expected a pretty wild fight, but I thought Anthony Smith would come out on the other side here. What say you? Did this fight go as you thought it would, or were you surprised with the result?
Oh, wait, hold on. You didn't read my predictions? In that case, I went 10 for 10. Yeah, I predicted every fight exactly when it would end, which ones would go to a decision, what round the finishes happened in. Don't go back and read it. I'll just give you the gist of it now. Yeah, pretty much I got everything exactly right. No, but actually the main event, I predicted the opposite of what happened. I said, Glover's the older fighter. He's not going to be able to keep up the pace. And so at first I was like, oh, Anthony Smith's pushing the pace. It's super accurate. This is going exactly as I thought it would. But then he's the one who kind of tired out. And Teixeira was patient. He really used his energy well. So I got the call actually exactly the opposite. And I said Smith would get the late finish. Said Glover got the late finish, and he looked fantastic.
Casey, it was a big night for the 40-plus community. Good Lord, between Arlovsky, we'll get into that in a moment, and what Glover Teixeira did tonight. That was an unbelievable performance. Got the finish, and it's a guy who doesn't get finished very often. What did you take away from that fight and that performance?
All the 40-year-olds or the main event?
The main event. Okay. We'll get into all the 40-year-olds in a moment.
Well, first, as I was watching, I just realized, I think about 8 years ago when the UFC had their first card in Brazil, the first pay-per-view, I actually saw Glover fight in Chuto, Brazil on, I think, Friday night. And he fought at the what do you call it, Paula Tiago, the Secret Police. He fought there, and I remember watching him fight there, and I was like, that guy's old. And I just think Glover Teixeira is just one of those guys that was just born old. And I'm actually a little bit older than him, which is I think is insane. And yeah, just a veteran experience when that fight, just veteran toughness, controlling that cardio, just almost a bit of a kind of remind me of Yoel Romero in the sense that he just doesn't waste energy. He just kind of shells up, moves his arm, blocks the shots, and then when it's time to go, he kills. And that's what it was. And he finally landed that big uppercut that we thought that thank goodness wasn't an actual eye poke, because that would have been a big shame if that was an eye poke. But luckily, it looked like that was a 100% clean shot. And I'm not shocked. I'm just pleasantly surprised. Nothing surprised me. I picked Anthony Smith to win, but if Glover was going to win, this is pretty much how he would do it.
Of course, a lot of folks, and I wouldn't say it overshadowed the performance, but a lot of people are talking about Anthony Smith's corner and whether or not they should have called this fight after the 4th round. And I have a ton of respect for Mark Montoya, but when a fighter tells you that his teeth are falling out between the 4th and 5th rounds, that has to be a telltale sign that your fighter just doesn't have it, or whatever he had, it's no longer there. So, and we're speaking from the outside. We're not fighters. We're not coaches. But I think even Daniel Cormier and Paul Felder and everyone involved with that broadcast and everybody on Twitter, fighters included, all felt the same way. Alex, how are you feeling? Probably from the beginning of the 4th round heading into the 5th. How did you feel about the whole situation? Do you believe that this fight should have been stopped before the 5th round started?
Well, look, even before we started getting should the corner stop the fight, I was amazed that Jason Herzog was letting it go on. I don't know if this was a reaction to, some of the stoppages that happened on Saturday. I think, I didn't have any issue with not too much of an issue with the Keith Peterson, Dominic Cruz, Henry Cejudo situation. I know Casey feels differently, but I do wonder if Jason Herzog was a little more cognizant. It is a main event. I know referees have said that sometimes they do kind of referee to context. Maybe they're not supposed to. Maybe they're supposed to stick to a stricter guideline. But definitely when it comes to main events, I think you will see some referees allow for a little more leeway when it comes to how much punishment a fighter takes. So then we come to the corner, and man, I was shocked. I was shocked even before we clearly heard on the broadcast Anthony Smith say, "I'm losing some teeth. My teeth are falling out." Even before that, we were wondering, just in the middle of the round, you got to be able to tell sometimes your guy just doesn't have it. Now, like you said, we're on the outside looking in. We don't understand how these things go sometimes. I'm seeing a lot of compliments being tweeted by the UFC social media. Dominic Reyes tweeted, "Smith, Lionheart suits you," and I think hearing those kind of things from his peers is obviously going to matter a lot more than from outside critics. But if it were up to me, of course, if I was his corner, I would have said there's just no way. There's no way this guy can go on. It just isn't that Hail Mary finish is not going to happen in the 5th.
Yeah, it was just it was a tough night for Anthony Smith and Jose. I don't know if you watch the fight. I know there's a lot going on back there, but Daniel Cormier made an interesting point that not having the crowd, as cool as it was for us watching on television, we get to hear the echo and stuff. But he feels that was kind of a detriment to Anthony Smith because when you hear your corner shouting out 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're just throwing out this energy, and the coach and the fighter's going to listen to everything that a coach says, especially a guy like Mark Montoya, especially a guy like James Krause. And Daniel Cormier felt like that kind of drained Anthony Smith's gas tank. What do you think of that take from the former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion?
Well, obviously a former champion's going to have a better take on the scenario than me, but it's hard to say. I haven't spoken with Anthony, so I don't want to speak for him. I'm saying that's what drained him, but it makes sense. I could hear we could hear Glover and Anthony talk in the fight. Like, they were against the fence, and Glover Teixeira is literally apologizing to Anthony Smith in the middle of the fight. He's saying, I'm sorry, it's part of the job. And Anthony Smith is like, yeah, it is what it is, man. So it's like, I'm sure the lack of fans played a factor to the point where his opponent is literally apologizing in the middle of the fight. But I do want to speak on what you asked, AK. We just, and with that, I got to go because Dana White is here. So I'll give you my opinion later.
You're ditching one bald man for a much more rich and powerful bald man. I see how it is, Jose.
I'll carry on from there because I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up one of the last times we had one of these corner stoppage controversies. Well, there was a Thomas Gifford one, which also involved, actually, I believe this some people from this team, from Anthony Smith's team. But before that, there was the Raquel Pennington Amanda Nunes fight. Was it Raquel Pennington Amanda Nunes one? Yeah, where obviously her corner didn't want them to throw in the towel. And when she was interviewed after, she said, "I stand by it." She said, "I would not have wanted my corner to do that, even having had a chance to kind of review what happened, having a few days to look back on her performance and what happened in that fight." She still said, "No, I would not have wanted them to do it." So I have a feeling we will hear the same thing from Anthony Smith. Now, does that make it right? Does it make it wrong? That's a whole other discussion, but I think when we hear comments from the corner and from Anthony Smith, they're going to be on the same page as far as how this one turned out.
Some news here. The performance bonuses have been awarded. Fight of the night goes to Brian Kelleher versus Hunter Azure. And then Drew Dober and Glover Teixeira get the performance of the night's bonuses. I'm surprised Kelleher didn't get the clean sweep here.
Wow.
What? Hold on. I liked the Ricky Simón Ray Borg fight. I thought that. I mean, Brian Kelleher and Hunter Azure were also good. Is it possible that the crystals made the difference? No. Because you know what? I'm only doing this because I have to be impartial, and Jose isn't here to do it. Everyone knows Jose and Team Crystal. Okay, look, they feel they're responsible for helping some of these fighters to success. Brian Kelleher last time was boosted from the preliminary card to the main card. He thought it was the Crystal Energy, and now he gets a fight of the night bonus and a huge knockout of Hunter Azure. So I don't believe in it. I'm telling you guys not to believe in it. But just speaking objectively, Brian Kelleher likes crystals. He's had some good fortune lately. Let's leave it at that.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. I
I get one a show. I get one a show.
Oh, I love that.
First of all, I appreciate Oscar Willis jumping in at different points to make faces and go over Jose's shoulder, whether on the left or the right side. But we talk about matchmaking after these events, and I know I saw a comment on the screen earlier. Dan D, I think his name was. If I got it wrong, I apologize. But Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos was his suggestion. So what do you think about that, Casey? Glover versus Santos.
What win streak is Glover on? It's very sneaky.
It's 4 now.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's one of those fights. You kind of surprised. Oh well, I guess they've been in different weight classes for so long. I'm kind of surprised they've never fought, but why not? Now the thing is, for the UFC, would they ever give Glover a title shot? Do you think? Like, no matter what he does, or is he one of those guys that would just keep knocking out contenders rather for a title shot? Do you think the UFC will John Jones and the UFC ever accept a rematch of Glover? And I'm not talking the sporting sense. I'm only talking in the money sense. Because
I would
that fight
say
does make sense, Glover versus Santos. But if Glover does win, he knocks out another potential rematch for John Jones. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I would say he's probably gonna have to put himself in a position where there is just no other option. Like he's gonna have to extend that streak to like 6 or 7, keep finishing guys. Like if he fights Thiago Santos and finishes him, and then fights another guy that a Reyes or a Blachowicz or something like that, which he'll probably end up facing one of those two guys at some point anyways. Then I think there's no choice. I mean, that's just kind of where it is right now. He can't move back. He can't be fighting guys like Rakic and Johnny Walker and those guys. He needs to be fighting guys that are right there, like guys who just fought for the belt over the last couple of years. Like these are the fights that need to be made right now after a win like that. So that's kind of how I feel. AK, what do you think about that? You agree with me, or do you have another take on this?
Well, I mean, before we were asking about his win streak, if you ignore if you consider John Jones's win streak to have been snapped by the no contest with Daniel Cormier, then Glover is now tied. Glover is now tied with Magomed Ankalaev and Ryan Spann actually at 4 straight wins for the longest UFC light heavyweight win streak. So it's getting hard to deny him. My opinion would be that he has to just and stay ready for a short notice call. That feels like the best situation for him to get a title shot. They definitely will not be going out of their way to try and book that. A fight with Thiago Santos would be cool. I've been lobbying for Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos, but I don't know if Reyes feels that he needs to take that fight. And you mentioned kind of the same problem. Either way, we're knocking contenders out of the picture if someone wins. So I don't know how you're going to do that. But I don't think a Teixeira title shot is out of the question. As I mentioned, he has one of the longest light heavyweight winning streaks. He's a veteran. He's somewhat of a name. And I think there's enough distance between the first Jones fight and if they ever fight again that it wouldn't be like out of the question to be able to sell it at least a little bit.
Danny D agrees with your sentiment, Alex, that Borg versus Simón should have been the fight of the night. I think a lot of people might agree with that as well. But if you missed it, Kelleher versus Azure was the fight of the night tonight. And then Dober and Teixeira get the performance of the nights, and we're going to get to Dober in a minute. But let's talk about this co-main event in the heavyweight division. We have Ben Rothwell versus Ovince St. Preux. Ovince St. Preux, we talked about weighing in at 240.5 pounds during the weigh-in show and during the preview show coming up from light heavyweight. And this fight had it all. I mean, both guys are in trouble. Both guys are digging deep. Was it the prettiest fight of all time? Of course not, but it lived up to what the matchup was. Like, when this matchup was booked, we were all like, huh? Really? And then the fight kind of played out exactly like that. Alex, what did you think of Big Ben versus OSP in the heavyweight co-main event?
Is there ever a pretty Ben Rothwell fight? He has some pretty finishes. Are any of his fights pretty all the way through? I don't know. I think that's what we love about him. Right? He's not the most stylish guy. He's not the most explosive athlete. He doesn't always look elegant in there, but somehow the guy just gets it done and just keeps getting back in that cage and picking up wins. This was fight number 50 for him. So he always gives you something to see. It was definitely an inconsistent fight. There was bouts of explosiveness, there was bouts of entertainment, and there was moments that were, I think, as our Damon Martin described it in his recap, as a little grueling. There were certainly moments that were grueling, but I thought it was a convincing win for Rothwell. The split was a little surprising, though. I guess one of the judges gave OSP the second round. There was a late knockdown, or Rothwell said it was a slip after. It looked like a knockdown to me. But otherwise, I thought it was a good win for Ben. He's now won 2 straight. And for OSP, maybe just stay at heavyweight. If this was my first time ever seeing him, I would not believe you that he could even make light heavyweight. He looked really big.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you anyways, so thank you for doing that. But Casey, what do you think about OSP? We're going to get to Ben Rothwell and the call it after, but do you think he sticks at heavyweight, or does he go back to making those? Seeing him at 240.5, he's probably cutting a ton of weight to get down to the light heavyweight limit. Do you think he just sticks around at heavyweight at this point?
Yeah, I think heavyweight is where he should be. I feel like he's one of those fighters that he doesn't really he's somebody that doesn't take a lot of damage during fights. So I feel like he can kind of fight often, maybe 4 times a year, no weight cuts. He looked pretty durable, and like you said, he looked like a heavyweight. He just, I think, lost. I mean, I think I'm looking at MMA decisions. I scored it for Rothwell. It looks like about 18 out of 20 journalists also scored it for Rothwell. So pretty vast majority, but it was obviously a competitive fight. And this is his first fight, and maybe OSP's next fight can be against one of those smaller heavyweights. So so maybe he'll actually have the size advantage. But he went against a giant of a man for your first heavyweight fight, and it seemed to kind of affect him toward the fight. He was really laboring, breathing hard, but somehow, man, OSP, like, even though he, like, from his striking, he only hits you from the left side, and he's only a threat from the left side, and he was still doing damage. And like, somehow there's something about OSP's footwork that still is giving everyone trouble. And I hope he stays a heavyweight. It's fun.
Yeah, Casey, you mentioned him. He should fight a smaller heavyweight. I think we mentioned this a few times, but he came in at 240, which was, of the 6 heavyweights on the card, he was heavier than 3 of them. So there are definitely smaller heavyweights out there for him to fight on this card, even.
After the win, which you just knew that fight was going to go to a split decision. You just knew it, just based on the formula here. But Ben Rothwell calls out Alexei Oleinik, who screws up my on to the next one plans to have Oleinik face Jairzinho Rozenstruik after UFC 249. But I do not hate that matchup at all. Alex, your thoughts of the idea of Ezekiel choke versus the Go-Go sometime in 2020?
And again, just that amount of experience. I mean, when we saw Verdum and Oleinik step in, they were like, "Oh, this is 2 guys with a lot of fights." Now you throw in Rothwell and Oleinik. I mean, this is kind of what the heavyweight division is. I think at this stage, the UFC heavyweight division, in the mid tier, not quite near the top 5 and not quite near the bottom 20, it's these veteran guys who put on weirdly entertaining fights. And again, sometimes inconsistent. I think Oleinik, Verdum was very much the same way. There was some excitement with the way Oleinik fought him. And then there was also moments of, oh my gosh, nothing's happening. So I think Oleinik Rothwell was a very logical matchup. I thought your Jairzinho suggestion was good as well. But if the UFC did decide to listen to Big Ben and say, yeah, okay, 2 veteran guys, 2 guys with some interesting stand-up and also with some good grappling, throw them in there. Let's keep this unofficial Legends division going,
What's interesting, talking about the weight, is that Alexei Oleinik weighed in like 15 pounds lighter, close to it, than OSP did. Casey, you got to be loving the idea of Rothwell versus Oleinik. That seems like right up your alley.
As long as the UFC shows Rothwell's walkout. I gotta say, I was a bit upset. We went to commercial break, so we didn't have Rothwell walking out in an empty arena. Like, I was hoping he'll walk out the empty arena, have his cloak on, like no music, just like Joan, just that you hear his footsteps, and he just does like oh hey Rubella, a dog. Dogs are sleepy. I'm annoying him. But yeah, I want to see hopefully the war gets a little bit normal and we can actually have more of a build up, not just kind of like, let's just throw this fight on, let's just see if it happens. I would love I think Oleinik Rothwell is a very entertaining fight, and it sounds like a great co-main event for any future fight night.
In case you are joining us right now, this is the UFC Jacksonville live virtual post show on MMAfighting.com. Mike Heck here, being joined by Alex K. Lee, Casey Leydon, and José Youngs will be popping in and out from Jacksonville. He's listening to Dana White, who is at his post-fight press conference right now, so he probably doesn't even hear what we're saying right now. But interesting tidbit thus far from Dana at the presser. The May 23rd event, which was scheduled to take place next Saturday, which reportedly is going to be headlined by Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns, is officially moved to May 30th. So that is not happening next Saturday as planned. It's going to go the following Saturday, May 30th. And he also said that if it's not in Vegas, it's going to be somewhere else. So May 30th will be the new date for that card. So I'm okay with that. From what I understand, Gilbert Burns and Tyron Woodley haven't even signed contracts for that fight yet. I believe it's verbally agreed to, but the last I checked, pen has not gone to paper, and I think this is probably why. And another interesting thing on the broadcast before we get back to the fights was they did a little promo for Nunes and Spencer for that UFC 250 fight, and then they put up the graphic and they said location TBD, but they also said date TBD. So that one is slated for June 6th, but we don't even know if it's going to happen June 6th or the 13th or whatnot. So things are going to get wild over the next few weeks, are they not?
They're wild right now. I don't think we need to wait. It's like, I just think that's, I don't even know what to say. Like, we have supposedly the highest level athletes in the world, the toughest fighters in the world, and we're like, hey guys, in 2 weeks somewhere ish, and show up, and pay your $60. There
you go.
It's a new world.
Look, there's nothing normal about MMA. We know this. We all know this, and that's why we love it. That's one of the reasons why we love it. There's nothing normal about it. So anyone who was thinking that the UFC coming back was a return to normalcy. No, guys, UFC coming back is a return to chaos. Okay, the chaos that we all know and love that is produced by MMA and the biggest MMA promotion in the world. So this is what you wanted, guys. This is what you wanted. This is what you asked for. This is what we had to deal with. This is the stuff that we love covering, for better, for worse, warts and all. Fights booked on dates, events just completely being moved around. This is the life we chose. So, I hope you guys enjoy the chaos being back in your lives. Okay.
And feel free to leave your questions, comments, reactions to tonight's chaos in the comments section. We will get to those. Back to the card. How about Drew Dober tonight? Huge win for him in a fight that lived up to all the hype everyone presented on social media and otherwise. I saw improvements in both guys. Hernandez came out a lot more aggressive than I thought he would be. He landed early, but Dober was eventually able to find his timing. He really started to cut off the cage and land big shots. And Hernandez was, as Jim Ross would say, the legendary Jim Ross, was tougher than a $3 steak out there. But Herb Dean made the right call and stopped the fight in the second round. Huge win for Drew Dober, Alex, who is becoming a problem in a loaded lightweight division.
Yeah, this is one fight that I actually did predict correctly. I said Dober's striking was just a little bit sharper than Hernandez is at this stage in their careers. Hernandez is not a bad striker, but compared to how good Dober has become in his last 2 or 3 fights, he is that striking game. Like, those hands have become so sharp, and he's become one of those guys where he's got that kind of knockout power that doesn't come from him, throwing haymakers or throwing wild. Like, he's got this precision. It's that old that Conor McGregor saying, precision beats power and all that. Dober has that precision. He throws good combinations. He's got amazing timing. He just looks so advanced. I think he's 30, 31 years old. So he's really kind of just entering his prime as an MMA fighter. And we've got a real contender here. This isn't just a guy who puts on entertaining fights. This is a guy who legitimately, I feel like, could be in the top 5 of the UFC by the end of this year or early next year.
Ooh. Yeah, him and Justin Gaethje could both be in the top 5. How about that? Teammates getting after it. But Casey, Dober wants a big fight. He's going to, when he wakes up Monday or Tuesday morning, that was the big thing that was said in the broadcast after the fight. He mentioned Paul Felder. I don't think that one happens, but you got to appreciate the shot call by Mr. Drew Dober. And to me, and maybe I'm just plugging what the heck that drops tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., but it's got to be Diego Ferreira, rebooking that one from the postponed OKC card. Top 10 guy who's on a streak himself. But any fight involving Drew Dober is something people are going to watch. What do you think should be next for a guy like Drew Dober after that performance tonight?
Definitely Ferreira. Ferreira is one that makes total sense. Why was that fight actually canceled? Was Ferreira not able to make this fight?
You'll have to watch. You'll have to watch what the heck tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's just say he was unpleasantly surprised at the booking. Let's just say that.
I think Dober. He's just coming into his own. He just looked great tonight. No, I don't know if he's gonna be a top 5 guy. I don't know if he's gonna be top 10. But he's definitely an exciting action fighter, a unique personality, a guy with a great smile. What was his walkout song, Alex?
Dober?
Yeah.
This is how we do it.
He came out to This Is How We Do It. Hernandez came out to Common. Yeah, okay, yeah. Dober came out to This Is How We Do It, which was the second best walkout music in the night.
Okay, yeah. So
behind Return of the Mac, of course.
So no, I just think Dober's just a great, another great fighter for the UFC's super deep lightweight roster. And I'm just like, Diego Ferreira makes a lot of sense, but heck, Felder is a little too far away. I think he's too big, a little bit too big a name right now. I think Felder doesn't want to go that way right now. But Diego Ferreira, let's see it.
Yeah, and by the way, Hernandez picked up a W in the walkout battle. The common walkout was better than This Is How We Do It. And I love This Is How We Do It as much as the next guy, but Hernandez won that battle. He didn't win the fight, and he's lost 2 out of 3. He got thrust, and this is a big story. He talked about it a lot. He got thrust into the top 15 after the Dariush knockout in his debut. He's never really had the chance to develop and build his way up the division. And a step back to me makes just a ton of sense. I know he was supposed to fight Omar Morales at the UFC 249 April 18th iteration, and that's no easy fight after we saw today by any means. Also, he's mentioned in the past a desire to drop to 45, drop to featherweight. So that could be an option as well. So, Alex, if you had the proverbial pen here, what do you do with a guy like Alexander Hernandez to try to build him back after dropping 2 of his last 3?
Yeah, I hope they don't, do the wrong thing with this guy. Look, I understand what, like we said, he had that Dariush knockout, and then he looked great against Olivier Aubin-Mercier, another guy who was a kind of a prospect. So he kind of won a prospect versus prospect battle, but he should have stayed in that range fighting guys like OAM, right? But instead, because of the Dariush win, that a 2-0 start, one of them such a quick knockout. You're right. He got thrust into it. He's got a great look, great physique. I think if you kind of look at a certain angle, he almost reminds me a little bit of George St. Pierre body wise, right? And if you're the UFC, you notice that too, and that's the sort of thing you would love to push to the top of the card, which they've kind of tried to do with him, unfortunately. So yes, the right thing to do. Definitely have to take a step back. Don't stage Northcutt this kid. Give him some real, give him, knock him down. Not knock him down a peg, but definitely bring down the matchmaking a notch. There's so many good lightweights, like Casey said. It's such a deep division. I would say don't put him with another veteran. I mean, there's guys like Arman Sarukian, that's another prospect. I'm just looking at names here. I can't quite recall if anyone was supposed to have a fight coming up. I guess nobody does now. Davi Ramos would be a good opponent. Nazrat Hakapras, who just came off a loss to Dober. Maybe pair them up. That'd be a good battle. There's a lot of guys around his level who also, need building up, that I feel like it doesn't hurt them to throw them in the cage with each other. So, Hernandez definitely still a prospect, just not quite where Dober is development-wise yet, but he could get there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think back at the Cerrone build-up and that fight and the press conference and how that fight all played out. And, whatever momentum he had just kind of vanished. And he had the fight with Trinaldo, which a lot of people didn't think he even won that fight. He was very confident that he won that fight, but a lot of people felt that he got some home cooking there. But Hernandez obviously a very interesting personality, and I think he rubs people the wrong way, especially with the build up with the Cerrone thing. So I kind of wonder what his career would look like had that fight not gotten booked for that Brooklyn card. But it is what it is, and Hernandez has to go back to the drawing board. We talked about Ricky Simón getting back in the win column. That was a great fight with Ray Borg. Big win for Tiago Moises. But how about, since we were talking about the 40-plus club, how about Andrei Arlovski, the ageless pit bull, picking up a win over the very tough and debuting Philippe Lins? Had a lot of hype coming over from World Series of Fighting, a millionaire, or the PFL, excuse me. I think a lot of people expected that fight to go down the way it did, but it's nice when a guy like Arlovski looks to be done. People are kind of writing him off. He's on his way out, and then, boom, he comes back with a huge win. Casey, what did you think of the Pitbull's big win tonight?
You know what? I think I was like a lot of people. I'm just kind of expecting Arlovski just to get knocked out really bad and like build up this upcoming prospect, or if Lens, he's not really a prospect, but like build him up, and it just isn't happening. But I think every fight we're kind of just waiting for Arlovski just to get you, because you see these images, of when Brett Rogers knocked out Arlovski, when Fedor knocked out Arlovski, so we just had that mental image. We've seen him like just flatline. That's what's like 10 fights in a row. He's like what, like, not 10 wins in a row, but like 10. I think they said like 9 straight decisions. So like, okay, the whole thing, he ain't got a chin. All right, we're that's old news. It's just, man, like he looked in great shape tonight. He's talking about that awesome beard. His quarantine beard was sharp. It's just like, wow. I mean, I scored the first 2 rounds just based on the beard. It was just amazing. And yeah, he was able to handle the speed of Lens, and he adjusted, and he won a smart, not exciting, but very Arlovski decision victory. And he's still around, and he's still doing it.
Yeah. Speaking of guys who looked good physically and performance-wise, how about Chase Sherman coming back to the UFC, the Vanilla Gorilla, back in the octagon, back in the UFC winner's circle, and apparently back on Twitter as well. It was a nice surprise to see Chase Sherman back on Twitter. One of the best Twitter follows in MMA for a long time. He's back. He had a nice win over Ike Villanueva, finished the fight in the second round. And what stuck out to me was Sherman comes out. He was very methodical early on, but you could tell he was starting to get a little reckless in there. He's starting to get into a dogfight with Villanueva. And at the tail end of that opening round, Villanueva was starting to land. And I thought it was a great cornering right there heading into the second round to completely turn the focus back to how that fight began. He comes out in the second round. He picked Villanueva apart, finished the fight. Alex, what did you think of the Vanilla Gorilla's return to the octagon tonight to kick off the festivities?
Yeah, former meme lord Chase Sherman looked good. This is, for anyone who doesn't know, this is actually his 4th straight MMA win. This was his return to the UFC, his first time fighting in the UFC since September 2018. He was fighting for Island Fights. He won a bare knuckle FC title last year, later last year, and then he lost it to a fellow UFC veteran, Joey Beltran. But he's been busy. You know, I know a lot of people. I saw some comments like, Chase Sherman, he's still fighting, or I thought the UFC cut this guy. And it's like, yeah, they did cut him quite a while back, and now. Some fighters, you know, they get cut and they never really find their footing in the regional scene. They never find a way to develop outside of the UFC. But Chase Sherman did it somehow. You know, I mean, he got good matchups. Again, bare knuckle boxing, it's just a different flavor. Maybe that sort of revitalized him, just a change of pace thing. And he came back and he looked amazing. He was so accurate. I mean, he was the bigger guy, but he used his size as he should. You know, his striking was on point, and he looked awesome. And then he had maybe the post-fight speech of the night, where when Daniel Cormier asked him, how does it feel to get that first UFC win in, you know, so many years? And he said, you know, have you ever ordered a 10-piece chicken wing order and then ended up getting 11 pieces? I mean, that's the way it's awesome. That's the best way I can put it. And he did not bless us with a meme in his return to Twitter, but he did write chicken wangs and a gorilla emoji for himself. So Chase Sherman is definitely back.
Yeah, that was the moment I knew he was really back. Was that comment? One of the nominees for promo of the year thus far.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's early, but who knows what the hell's going to happen. But Ike Villanueva game debut. He went in there completely outsized and did his thing. Took a lot of heavy leg kicks, but kept throwing bombs. And you know, him going back down to 205 is obviously going to be the best thing for him moving forward. But you know, 6 days notice to go in there. You finally get your UFC call. He went in there and did work, and props to both those guys. Chase Sherman back in the win column and back in the UFC. But how about my fellow Baldy, the Crystal Crew member, Brian Boom Kelleher, now $50,000 richer with his fight of the night against Hunter Azure. And what an interesting fight that was, because Hunter came out on fire. He was landing a lot of different shots, but you could tell like the momentum was starting to swing in Kelleher's favor in the second round before he landed that just ferocious hook to put Azure down. And I thought the referee probably should have jumped in there a little sooner, but it is what it is. Big win for Brian Kelleher. Thoughts on that, Casey Leydon? You know Brian very well from his many A-side appearances.
I'm just because I feel like I know him just on a personal basis. I'm just happy for him. I don't know Hunter, so I'm like it sucks for him. But because I know Brian, so I'm just happy for him. I think that's 2 back-to-back bonus. Is that back-to-back bonuses? Yes.
Did he get a bonus? He got a bonus his last fight too?
Yeah, for the Osborne submission.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So yeah, like you say, start off a little slow, and then start off a little slow, back. And yeah, he just looked great. And I don't really know what's next for Brian. Actually, but what I think the most interesting part about this is that these are 2 35ers that got to fight at 45, and I think that's awesome. And I wish the UFC would do that to almost all their fights, outside of title fights. In these special pandemic times where training is much more difficult, weight cutting is more dangerous and more difficult, I wish UFC would just let all these guys go up a weight class, train harder, don't worry about the weight cut, and fight more exciting. And I think it was a super exciting fight. And like DC said, when your chin touches your shoulder, that means you got hit really hard.
Yeah, Azure's is a legit prospect too.
He looked really good.
Yeah, he looked really good in that fight. His striking vastly improved. He looked great on the Contender Series. He's getting better and better, so I expect big things out of him. I believe Jose is back with us. Is that the case?
Right here.
We got you, Jose.
Right here.
He's here.
Just left the building.
All right. Let's talk about that, Jose. We talked about Dana White confirming the May 23rd card is now May 30th, whether it's in Vegas or somewhere else, but some of the takeaways you're going to watch, you guys are going to be able to see the whole video on the MMAfighting.com YouTube page sooner rather than later of Dana White's scrum tonight. But what were some of the big points that stuck out to you?
Well, first of all, speaking of the main event, he floated the idea of a Reyes-Glover Teixeira fight as a number 1 contender fight, which means I would assume he's leaning towards Jan Blachowicz and the John Jones fight. He floated it. He obviously says, I like that idea, but nothing's official yet. Confirmed Gaethje Habib will most likely be in September, not the summer, considering what's going on with Habib, with his father specifically. I asked him about the Conor McGregor tweets, and he just goes, Habib's fighting Justin. That's the end of it. I don't want to hear any more of it. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you noticed, Steven Espinoza, one of Dana White's best friends, as you know, announced that Bellator in short time are going to be running cross-promoted events, so possibly like MMA versus a boxer, or just like MMA and boxing on the same day, similar to how Bellator did those kickboxing and MMA shows. And Dana White laughed. It's just good luck to him. That's pretty much it. Was very surprised Anthony Smith's corner let him come out for that final round. Dana White said the crowd was so quiet that it was doing everything in his power not to like scream stop the fight, because like Dana's words could very easily sway the referee or one of the judges. So he said that was a challenge. But yeah, I think the big pull from that is May 30th. He said 100% May 30th, if not Las Vegas, somewhere else. Reyes Glover he likes the idea. Habib Justin in September, and then of course he likes Brian Kelleher's performance. He made a note of the live betting in the Kelleher fight. Kelleher got all the way up to like plus 300 2 minutes before the knockdown. Because of how the fight was going, you can now bet live, and the odds skewed all the way to plus 300 2 minutes later. Brian Kelleher gets the knockout, so he won a lot of people a lot of money, and made sure, I'm sure you guys have seen, if you haven't, it's probably on this YouTube channel now, if not sooner, of Brian gave a shout out to his Tiger's Eye that MMA Fighting gave him. So yes, that's 2 straight bonuses. This wasn't a performance bonus. This was Fight of the Night bonus for Azure and Kelleher. It's a little bit of a bummer for Anthony Smith for taking a beating and not getting a Fight of the Night bonus, or even a lot of people online liked the Ovince St. Preux fight. Ben Rothwell was also entertaining as always on the presser. But yeah, lot to pull from the Dana White's press conference.
And you have to do Kelleher versus O'Malley now. Like, you just have to do it. I mean, the buildup is there. It's like Randy Orton. Randy Orton was the legend killer, and then he got to the Undertaker. You know, Kelleher's become the Contender Series killer. Let's let him fight Sean.
Oh, I gotta dip out.
I'll catch you guys in a second.
Oh, so I guess Jose's out of here.
He said I guess Glover. Did he say Glover?
Glover's coming up. Yeah. I wonder if Anthony Smith's coming up. I would assume he probably got transported, but I don't know if we have official word on that yet. But if you guys get comments, questions, throw them in there. I did see one comment that it was if you want to pull that up. Just
I lost it, but let me throw some other ones up here.
Well, before we get to Marco's comment in question, it was about the fights without the fans and how he's trying to like them, because it's really fascinating to hear the corners and the fighters being able to hear Cormier and the commentators and stuff like that. But I gotta say, and I'm not trying to be a jerk at all, but I don't miss the fans. I don't. I mean, there's parts where like I wish the fans are there to like erupt to a specific moment, but just being able to like focus on the fights themselves has been kind of refreshing over these last 2 fight cards. Like, we're not hearing the wooing. We're not hearing like a fighter going up for their post fight and getting booed out of the building because they didn't agree with the decision. Like, I kind of think this is refreshing in a way, but I know it's going to change. This is just trying to find silver linings in a tough situation, but I don't really miss it at all. But anyone disagree with me on that?
Sorry, Mike. I'm in the middle of writing a post about Mike Heck, I don't miss the fans. I hope they never come back. I think this will be our lead story in the morning. So it'll lead right into what the heck. It's gonna be good. It's good. Good
classic MMA media right here. Just twist my words.
I look. The words are what came out. That's all I'm saying. All right.
You said them. It's not my it's not my job to provide context.
We're not overthinking here.
Well, look, I mean, for us watching from home, it's a very cool experience. Like we said, there's just so much stuff you could hear. Even the in-fight chatter, there was some like really funny exchanges, stuff that was unsettling, like I said, some of the stuff we heard in that Anthony Smith Glover Teixeira fight. So it gives a different look. The impact of the hits, definitely on Saturday, the Gaethje Ferguson fight. Man, you knew how hard Gaethje hit, then you saw that fight and you heard those punches. It was crazy. So it was a different experience. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's better. I think there definitely is something to the energy that a crowd brings. Some of these fights, the crowds would have been going nuts for them. Like we said, the Kelleher fight, the Borg, Ricky Simón fight. So it's different. I don't know if it's better. And there's certainly aspects of it that I will miss. Whenever we get the chance to have fans back in arenas again. But watching from home, yeah, there's a lot of positives to this different atmosphere.
Yes, and that's what I meant. Thank you very much for making me look better there. Marco's question was thoughts on Smith's coaches, and I think we touched on that earlier. I think we're all in agreement that fight probably should have been stopped at least heading into the 5th round. But again, this is kind of tough with the structure of MMA right now, and I think this has been brought up on many different occasions. And I think this is probably the 3rd time that Mark Montoya and his team have been questioned. Like the Gifford one was one of them. Tonight was another one, and I think Eric Anders. I think Montoya was cornering Eric Anders when he fought Khalil Roundtree, and Roundtree was just rocking his world for pretty much that entire fight, and he was just getting leg kicked and dropped. He got dropped like 4 times in the 2nd round. So people thought that the fight should have been stopped heading into the 3rd, but we're not fighters and we're not coaches, and the way that pay structure is right now, you got show money and you got win money. When you have that in the mix and you have a chance to double a paycheck and you ask a fighter whether or not they want to stop, they're not going to tell you they want to stop, because if they feel like that Hail Mary is in there to double their money, they're going to go for it. And you can't blame them for that. But, this is a whole different podcast for another time, talking about pay structure in MMA.
That was the problem. Like,
that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, like every once in a while, you like stop the fight, but then you see Anthony like throw a technical hard combo. He wasn't like wobbly. So there was like these moments you're like, there's a chance. But it's just, because it's like we saw it one time, we saw one comeback one time, and we're always kind of just, that's kind of what MMA's kind of selling point is. One punch changes the fight. One anything and just turn the fight, the other way around. But it was very wishful thinking, and it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate, and I love Jeff. Who's the ref? I'm sorry, Jeff. Herzog? Yeah, Herzog.
Yeah.
Herzog's actually
Jason Herzog.
Jeff Herzog, his brother. Jason Herzog. He's actually a great ref, and he did something. He almost gave too much respect to Anthony Smith, I felt like, and I don't want to say it was the latest stoppage. Much like Keith Peterson, that wasn't the earliest stoppage I've ever seen. Like, this wasn't the latest stoppage, but it was on the later end of because at some point, like, Anthony Smith, he's not coming back. You were watching it. Okay, one more shot, he'll stop the fight, and then he didn't stop the fight. So, but I hope Anthony Smith is okay. I hope this doesn't keep him out too long, and I hope he gets some extra money. Yeah, that's a tough way to make a living.
Yeah, especially during these times. That fight was rebooked a couple of different times, and he's coming back from that gnarly handbrake, and then everything that happened with the home break-in and all that stuff. Like, that guy has just been through a lot.
This fight was
I can see Jose on the bottom of my screen asking Glover Teixeira a question right now, but we can't hear him. You'll be able to see that all later.
So we got he's asking a question. Sorry, Jose's asking.
Yeah. So again, we're probably going to wrap this up pretty shortly here at this point. But if you guys got other questions, comments, concerns, throw them in there. We'll try to rapid fire some.
While we're waiting, can we talk about Tiago Moises? How have we not talked about Tiago Moises yet? Holy crap, that's probably one of the best submissions this year. We talked to him about him facing the Mercurial Michael Johnson. At this point, if anyone knows what's curious, should just change his nickname to the Mercurial Michael Johnson, because I just can't write about him or talk about him without using that word. He's just, his resume is just full of so many peaks and valleys. It's crazy. And this fight was almost a microcosm of his whole career. He looked sensational in round 1 against Moises. He was lighting him up. I mean, he just had him backed up the whole time. Moises had no answer on the feet. And then Moises, to his team's credit, right out of the gate in the 2nd round, that I think they told him, you better shoot in. Don't strike with this guy. Go in. Attacks that leg like a Rottweiler. Gets Michael Johnson down. And I think it was within 25 seconds. Gets a submission. 25 seconds into the 2nd round, gets a what did we say? Achilles lock. I know they announced heel hook, but
it was some sort of ankle lock.
Yeah, and gets a submission. So one of the best submissions of the year. But I mean, you just saw it there with Michael Johnson. Looked great one moment. The next moment, it's no shame getting tapped up by Tiago Moises. But again, still, it looked like 2 different fights if you looked at those 2 rounds. So congratulations to Tiago Moises, though. He didn't get a bonus, eh?
Yeah, he didn't get it.
He should have. I mean, again, but 249 was the same way. I mean, there are so many guys who deserve bonuses.
Submissions, grappling heavy fights, submission fights rarely get the extra cash from Dana. It's kind of it's a bummer, because as happy I am for Crystal Crew, Brian Kelleher, I did agree. I thought Ray Borg and Ricky Simón was the most technical, highest level fight in the tonight's card. It was truly mixed martial arts. There was everything: striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu.
Right.
takedowns, getting back up. It was a great fight, and even at the last 15 seconds, they basically did the whole like let's fucking brawl, and I'm bummed, and it was a great fight. And there
no mullet though, no mullet.
But speaking of no crowds, how about the fact that we could hear them talk to each other during the fight?
Yeah, did you hear what they said?
Amazing.
Did you hear that one big moment? Like I couldn't make out what they said at first, but I think I believe ESPN MMA said that it was. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. I think Ray Borg said like, "Let's go, kid." And and Ricky Simón said, "I'm older than you."
yeah, it was something like that. Or, I think ESPN MMA said that Ray Borg said, "You look like me," and then Ricky Simon's response was, "No, you look like me. I'm older than you."
Oh,
I think it was something like
that.
But just hilariously.
But that's
I think I'm speaking with Ricky Simón over the next 48 hours, so I'm really interested to like pick his brain on what actually happened in there, some of the things that were actually said in there. So really looking forward to that as he is back in the win column after a couple of tough losses to Rob Font and then the Uriah Faber fight. So interesting. 135 is just so good right now. It's just such a good division. So last call for questions.
But I want to say about the Michael Johnson thing real quick. Almost a little bit of apology I have to make. I think it was Keith Peterson was the ref, and right, it was Keith Peterson was the ref. And remember when Michael Johnson, he almost gave like a little tap, and then he tapped again. And so I thought, it was like, oh no, Keith Peterson missed the tap. You can't miss the tap on especially a leg lock like that. That's very dangerous. But then after I saw the replay, I realized that Michael Johnson was doing a bit of a. You see him in jiu-jitsu tournaments. You kind of get the slight tap. It's like, oh, I wasn't tapping, but Keith Peterson, I'm not falling for that, and he had to give the hard real tap. So initially I was like, oh, that was a horrible stoppage, and I was like, ooh, my bad. Keith Peterson, you good ref.
And Keith Peterson's had an interesting last 5 days for sure. Anthony Smith has been transported, by the way.
Yes, and Brett Okamoto from ESPN just tweeted that he spoke to Smith's coach, Mark Montoya, and that Mark Montoya said it was not his team. It was veneers. He has veneers. So shades of Carl Parisian, I think, said that once. I don't know. I think it was a fight with Diego. It was a fight with Diego or Nick Diaz where he got hit so hard and you saw this white thing go flying out of his mouth. And Caro said after, it was a veneer. He didn't knock my tooth out. Come on. So Mark Montoya having the similar story here, saying it was a veneer. His teeth were not falling out of his head. But we'll see. I guess I know we'll learn a lot more about the situation in the coming days.
All right.
Yeah, Mark's a great guy too. He's a very insightful mind. Definitely, if you have the opportunity to pick his brain, it is definitely worth your time. I'd love to pick his brain about what was going through his head throughout that fight. That's for sure. Maybe we'll try to make that happen here on MMAfighting.com. Do we have any comments here, or should we wrap this bad boy up?
I think we're ready to head out of here. Maybe get back to some more work.
More work indeed.
And just one more fight card this week. Only one more.
I know. We're back at it again on Saturday.
Yes.
Wald Harris versus Alistair Overeem.
Thanks, everyone, guys, for sticking with us, though. I love the fans who are tuning into all of our content, tuning into these early morning weigh-ins, late night post-fight shows. You guys are friggin' awesome. You guys are so crazy. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, doing the best we can here. So it's a chaotic time, and we appreciate all of the comments, the nice ones and the and the not so nice ones.
I don't really appreciate those, but you can, Mike. I don't know.
But I listened to you this time. We got right into the fight talk.
Yeah.
I didn't mess around and ask how Alex was doing tonight. We just went right into the.
Nobody cares how I'm doing. They never care, Mike. Come on, yeah. We don't. Even if they did ask, we should say no. We're ignoring that question. Nobody cares.
Yes, we just get right into the thing. No foreplay. We're going. Veneers aren't easy to knock out, says Gabriel Killian.
I don't think teeth are easy.
I'm not a veneer guy. So I don't know. If you get veneers, you actually lost your teeth long before a fight. Metro Boomin.
We've got facts.
We need the horn again after that one. That's legit.
Got late night facts coming in.
Yes.
All right.
I am not a dentist nor a veneer expert, but all right, that's it. Let's put a bow on this thing. Alex, thank you for the time. Casey, awesome job as always. Jose, just hanging out there. He's scratching his nose right now and not hearing a word I'm saying. But thank you all for tuning in. We got virtual media day tomorrow for Saturday's card, so we'll have some videos up on that. Of course, What the Heck's going to drop tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Shane Burgos, Calvin Cater, and Diego Ferreira. And then we'll have a preview show on Friday and the weigh-ins on Friday, and then another whole set of fights on Saturday. That main card on Saturday, when they flashed it, it's a pretty darn good main card. I believe the first fight is Marlon Vera versus Song Yadong at featherweight, which will be a lot of fun. So, and then we go all the way up to we got Gedalia versus Hill. That's a great fight. And then, of course, Walt Harris versus Alistair Overeem will cap things off. So for Alex, Jose, and Casey, I am Mike Heck. Make sure you stick around with us for all the post-fight stuff here at MMAfighting.com as we put a bow on UFC Jacksonville. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you Saturday night, everybody.
Wow, Jose just left the building. All right.